Alright, so I've been mulling over the last episode of The Walking Dead for the past few days, and I think I'm back on board. The episode had a very powerful opening, and it starts off with Michonne and Rick. They had just buried Carl, and they're standing over his grave, and they gotta get out of there. Walkers are overrunning the place, but Michonne wants to stop and put out a fire of one of the gazebos that Carl liked to sit at. And it just shows you can't preserve your lost ones. You can remember them, but you gotta let them go. And you just kind of see this as Rick is like, no, we gotta go. And they try to put it out, it gets overrun, and they gotta get out of there. And I think that was kind of like symbolism for Carl's gone now. We gotta let him go. And I thought it was very powerful. And, I have to admit, in the scene where Carl thanks his father in the previous episode for making him the man he is just before he's about to die, and Rick says it was all for you, the way he said it just gave me the feels.
Carl, it was all for you, right from the start.
I'm not crying, you're crying. But seriously, if you didn't get a little lump in your throat or a little bit misty-eyed, I don't know what's wrong with you. Anyway, even though I think Carl's death was a dumb move, I'm actually intrigued about how they're going to handle the rest of the season and how they're going to handle the rest of the series moving on without Carl. Now, if you don't know, Carl's still alive in the comic books, and he's a huge part of some important story arcs, so I don't know how they're going to handle that. Now, I don't read the comic books, but I am aware of them. Like, I knew Glenn was going to die as soon as Negan showed up, because that had been spoiled for me by a friend who did read the comic book, so I am aware of most of the major plot points in the comic book. Now, just to give you an example, the introduction of the Whisperers, which are a group of people who have basically gone crazy and wear walker skins on their face as masks and live amongst the walkers. Carl falls in love with the leader's daughter, and the daughter runs away with Carl. This starts a huge war between the Whisperers and Rick's group. I don't know how they're going to spark this off without Carl. Maybe they'll use Enid, though I don't find that as interesting. I don't care about Enid as much as I do Carl. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be the route they're going to use. They're going to find a way around it. Now, the most disappointing story arc of all would be the relationship developed between Negan and Carl. And we got to see a little bit of that in Season 7. That's actually one of my favorite episodes. You can see that Negan actually likes Carl, and it's a little strange. We got to see inside of Negan's head how he thinks a little bit. Now, apparently that storyline was developed more in the comic books, and I really would have liked to see that expanded on. Now, the reason I'm so interested in seeing how they're going to handle this is, what is Rick's new motivation going to be? Because we all know that Carl was Rick's main motivation. Yes, he loves Michonne, but it's not the same. He has Judith, yes, but that's also not the same. That's Shane's daughter, and even though he says he loves Judith just as much, does he? I think that she's going to have to take the place of Carl, at least as his motivation. She's too young to be incorporated in the plot as a character that much, but they could use her, like I said, as motivation. Hopefully they find something else as well that makes it more compelling. Now, another thing that piqued my interest and got me ready to forgive The Walking Dead for killing off Carl is Negan's reaction to Carl's death. He wanted to know if it was his fault, and you could see that he really was upset.
You got bit. I am sorry.
Now you can see that Negan was truly affected by Carl's death, and I don't even really know why Rick responded to him and told him that it wasn't his fault. You'd think that Rick would have just let him think that it was his fault because he hates Negan, but he actually told him, no, it wasn't your fault. He went and got bit on his own trying to help somebody, and Negan blames him for this.
Carl is dead because of you. Because you couldn't leave shit well enough alone. Because you weren't there to stop him from doing something stupid.
Now that's just interesting. Negan blames Rick for the death of his son, and if you ask me, he's kind of right. Rick was out doing this and that, and he wasn't keeping an eye on Carl. He is partly to blame why Carl went out and did something stupid, like go help Sadiq and get bit. And I think Rick knows that. The funny thing is, why would Negan even care, right? Him and Rick are mortal enemies, yet he's concerned or he's upset that Carl died. I'm starting to see Negan less as a true villain and more of a complex character. He has real motivations. He's not just your cookie cutter villain. I think Simon is actually more of a villain than Negan. Negan thinks that he's doing a good thing. He actually believes that he's saving people. He thinks he's doing the hard thing and that he is the savior, that he's Batman. He doesn't see himself as Joker. And while we're on the subject of villains and Simon being more of a villain than Negan, wow, just what he did to Jadis and the Garbage People is just, it's mind-blowing. He absolutely defied Negan, and we all know Negan rules with an iron fist. Now his faction has kind of become split, and he is sort of losing his footing, but he's still the big boss. He's still in charge, and Simon went against his wishes. Negan asked him to go over to the Garbage People and kill one of their people for double-crossing them and going with Rick. But Simon is pissed, and he's losing it, and he's tired of being disrespected by these communities that he says just don't seem to get it. So he wipes out Jadis's whole community, and if you ask me, Jadis sort of pushed him into doing that. He was already on edge, but when he didn't get the reaction out of her that she wanted because she had this false facade on that the Garbage People have, the way that they talk in the minimalist way where, you know, he says, I don't see remorse. She goes, there's remorse. It was just pushing Simon's buttons, and Simon didn't want to hear that. He wanted to hear a genuine apology, or at least, you know, some groveling, and she just says, there's remorse. Now, when Simon shot one of her people, instead of standing down and realizing the situation was not in her control, she hit Simon, and that was it. He just slaughtered the rest of them.
Light it up, gents. Light it up now!
Look at that evil grin. I fucking love Stephen Ogg. He's an amazing bad guy. Now, another interesting thing is that Jadis, when we see her after her people are slaughtered and Rick and Michonne come upon her, she's in a white gown. She's no longer in that tactical gear or whatever it was, and she's crying. All of her people have been killed, and when she speaks to Rick and Michonne, she no longer speaks in that minimalist way, the kind of weird talk that the Garbage People have. She's talking like a normal person was. She's actually revealing things about her past, why she chose the landfill as a community. Jadis went through a lot in this episode. She had to watch all her people of her community be shot down and murdered, turned into walkers, and Rick and Michonne just left her when she asked to come with them. And so she had to find a way out. She fed all of the walkers into a meat grinder. She had to watch all of the people that she cared about just be blended into like meat soup. It was pretty disgusting. So she's gotta be pretty messed up right about now. So I really am enjoying the character development for Jadis. I think it's very interesting. Another thing that's pulling me back into the show is the fact that Rick just lost Carl. I mean, we haven't even seen the extent of what Rick is gonna do. He's about to go ape shit. And now it's not necessarily Negan's fault why Carl is dead, but I mean, in Rick's eyes, I think he thinks everything's Negan's fault. This whole war is the reason they're scattered, so yeah, it's Negan's fault as well. But he has nothing else to focus his rage and anger on, and you can just see it. He is seething. So yeah, I'm back in. I'm ready to see what they're gonna do. Can they fix this whole Carl is dead? Can they make it work? Maybe they can. Either way, I'm definitely more invested than I was last season. So tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. That's been The Takeaway, and until next time, later.